Mabuhay! Hi everyone! We are back in our third episode of our podcast, the Talent Huddle. Welcome. So today, as you can see, the setup is a bit different because through technology, we have a very special guest who is live from the US. So good evening to you there, Paul. But thank you so much for making time today. So for everyone, Paul Dornier, I hope I'm not mispronouncing that, Paul, and I'm so sorry. But Paul is the CEO and co-founder of Alpharun. We had been using Alpharun for quite some time now, and I actually had been waiting for this moment to talk to Paul about Alpharun because among the many platforms that we used, I was very confident with our decision to go and to use Alpharun. So with us today is Paul. And Paul, welcome to the Talent Huddle.
Thanks so much for having me, Carla. I'm very excited to be here. It's always great to chat with you.
It's a no-brainer to invite you to the podcast. So I'm very happy that finally it's happening. Yeah, so why don't we start by tell us something about yourself, Paul. Tell us something about Alpharun. I know you have a twin. I've not met him before.
Yeah, no, you do need to meet my twin at some point. He and I started a company together in college. That was our first company, and then got acquired after that. Spent a few years growing a team at the company that acquired us, and then started our second company, Alpharun, a little over a year ago now. And kind of sought to maybe tackle some of the very challenging parts of hiring that we had encountered in our previous companies. And that's kind of what brought us to the journey today. But yeah, somehow we spent a lot of time together. I think we're some twin relationships, maybe they wouldn't be able to do a company together, but somehow we figured it out. So far, so good.
Yeah, maybe later you can tell me if there were any fights between the two of you, because I'm sure it's not easy.
No, it's not always easy. We never have any fights that seem to last more than a day. So that's the good thing. You never wake up the next day, you're still upset. I guess it's like a good marriage, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess then it worked on the good side for you then.
Exactly.
Okay, so one of the things, I don't think I actually ever asked you this, but it's always been in my head, Paul. So excuse me for bringing this out now. But what made you name it Alpharun? Where did the word come from?
That's such a good question. I don't have a great answer for you. The sad answer is it's very hard to find a company name where you can buy the .com domain. That was very important to us. We didn't want to have to buy, get Alpharun or, Alpharun.ai or something like that. We wanted the .com. And then we wanted something that you could hear and then be able to spell and look up on Google, and it would be the first result. And so when you apply all those different criteria, it's actually pretty hard to find a .com domain that's still available and easy to get for not a crazy price. So that's kind of what led us there. I wish it was a more fun story than that, but it's that simple.
Okay, at least we have the answer now. So
you've got the answer.
And it works. Okay. But I did reach out to you if it's possible to rename. I think Anna now is the carrier name that the AI interviewer uses. But I reached out to you once because I thought I want to make it more local. I am a strong advocate of Filipino culture and talent. We said that, Paul, hey, can you rename our Anna or our Alpharun as Gabay, which is Tagalog for guidance. What did you think about that when I reached out to you and say, we want Anna to be replaced by Gabay?
I think it was exciting to me actually to hear it because I think it showed that you cared a lot about how this whole experience was going to feel for your candidates. And I think you had shared also that you had kind of asked your team to vote as well. So everyone had the chance to kind of decide what they were going to name the interviewer. And I think it's great. It means that you kind of care a lot about that part of the candidate experience. So I was very excited when you mentioned it. It's still a feature request we have to work on for you though.
Yeah, take your time. No pressure, Paul. As long as we
work it out.
Yeah, I know. I'm for sure. Right. Why don't you tell us more about Alpharun? So maybe as a general context, we came to you or we reached an agreement because we were kind of really looking for a third teammate, if you can, like a 6-man. But why don't you tell us a bit more about Alpharun? We know it's an AI interviewer, but I'm sure you have more insights to share.
Yeah, so Alpharun is an AI recruiting agent for teams that do a lot of hiring and teams that care a lot about spending more of their time building a really great relationship with the candidate and maybe less of their time on the more repetitive parts of the hiring process. So we think about our job really from a product perspective and a company perspective. It's just how do we make the recruiter life easier from the moment someone applies to the moment they finish, and they hopefully join the company. And then how do we make the candidate experience amazing, right? How do we make it fast, convenient, flexible, really engaging, feel like you're having the opportunity to kind of showcase your experience and your skills. And so a core part of that, of course, is the AI interviewer that you talked about. So Anna, as we call her, can do interviews in over 15 languages and all sorts of different types of interviews in terms of depth across technical interviews to HR roles to all sorts of other roles. And the focus there is just give more candidates the opportunity to have a really engaging dialogue back and forth and showcase their fit for the role. Over 45% of interviews, I think, happen outside of normal working hours. So it's hard to imagine, interviews happening at 1 a.m., but happens all the time. And I think it's great because it shows that there's a lot of candidates out there that have time at that part of the day to get an interview in and start their job search there. And we kind of want to meet them however is more convenient for them. So, I can talk a lot more about the product, but maybe that's a good place to start. And you all have obviously done a really good job kind of utilizing it to the fullest extent.
Yeah, and maybe I can share for people who are listening the things that led us to Alpharun and to work with Alpharun. I really look at it as it's my sixth man for the team, right? Like if it's a basketball team, Anna and Alpharun is the sixth man. What that means for me is the math for me was simple when I planned for 2025 for my team, which is do I invest do I invest in additional people, or do I invest in a sixth man, the AI interviewer who can do the job of the 4 additional people that I thought I might need this year, and also more than that. So what I like about Alpharun is that it eliminates the back and forth of, hey, when are you free for the interview? Are you logged in now or whatever? So they can take it on demand. You can take it if you're a candidate to Penn Brothers, you can take it during your lunch break if you want to. You can take it early in the morning if you want to, or late at night after your Netflix show, right? So it's on demand whenever you are available. And so also what it does for us is instead of interviewing thousands of people, Anna does it for us without complaints. If you make a human being do that, they're gonna say, I have to render overtime just to get through all of this. But with Alpharun, all of our applications go through it, and then it suggests to us to focus maybe on your top 10, top 20, however you want to tweak it. And so far, that has returned a lot of hours of savings for us.
I think you make a good point about of course, the time savings for your team, but also the convenience for candidates, where the part that gets me excited too is I think it used to be for a long time that recruiting automation products were a little bit of a sacrifice of the candidate experience. You kind of saved time for your recruiters, but you made the candidate experience much worse, right? They had to go through all these one-way video interviews that are kind of impersonal and just add a lot of time for the candidate to do more work. And I think what's very exciting about not just Alpharun, but the broader AI opportunity in recruiting and these tools is you have these experiences that are actually saving time, but producing experience that's easier and more convenient, giving more people the chance to showcase their skills and so on. So you can kind of get the best of both worlds now.
Yeah, I agree. I also never asked you this, but now I'm curious. So there's so many facets of HR you can do. You can automate, HR operations, ticketing. You can automate maybe even compensation benefits, maybe even payroll, for example. But why did you focus specifically on recruitment?
It was a problem that we felt anytime you're a founder yourself and you build a company or you've grown a large team, hiring is probably the most important thing you do. And so it was one of those pains that we had felt viscerally ourselves. So we kind of knew that it was something that if we could solve or make a dent in would be really meaningful for a lot of customers, of course, but also ourselves. And then I think there is something genuinely exciting about this idea that we think a lot about, which is, there's a global workforce out there. And there are all sorts of reasons why it's very hard to tap into that talent for companies all over the world. And part of it is just very difficult to actually screen and reach these candidates and have the time to interview them all. And so there's something also exciting about working at AI and recruiting because it kind of unlocks new work opportunity for a lot of people around the world. in a way that wasn't possible before. So there's a long list of reasons, but those are probably the two that I often think about.
Yeah. So if you were to summarize, what is missing in the recruitment process that you think Alpharun solves for most talent acquisition teams and professionals?
Yeah, I think it's fundamentally about reallocating time you're spending from very repetitive tasks into relationship building with candidates and allowing AI to do a really great job running in-depth interviews, and some of the parts of the process that are a little bit more manual, a little bit more repetitive, sending messages and things like that back and forth. Just automating the parts of the journey that are honestly less fun, I think, for most recruiters, and allowing them to focus a little bit more on maybe the more fun parts, which is that amazing call you have with someone when you think they're a great fit for the role and you're kind of selling them and getting them excited about the opportunity. That's the place where the recruiter is like unmatched and can provide the most value.
Yeah. To that point, my follow-up question to you, Paul, maybe would be, do you think that, in the many partners that you have with Alpharun, including us, what are some of the hesitations or any negative feedback that you think you hear or you see from candidates?
It's a great question. I think it's really important to remember, and we have to remind ourselves of this too on our team all the time. Most people, when they think of talking to AI, they often think of that really annoying customer service bot that they really just wanted to talk to a human, but they get routed to this AI bot instead that's not doing a very good job getting them the refund they want. And so every time we have a candidate interaction and we have the opportunity to interview them, we have to create a product experience that very quickly shows them this is not like that AI bot that doesn't understand you and isn't very helpful at all. In fact, what we want it to feel like is, wow, this was like an incredibly patient, thoughtful, fun interview that I got to do that maybe even beats some of the interviews I've done with recruiters. And so I think that's probably the most common hesitation, especially in a first conversation I'm having with a talent acquisition or HR leader. He's like, is this going to be a really kind of weird AI experience that reminds me of that customer support call? Or is it going to be something a lot more magical, which is a really high quality interview? And so a lot of my job is just allowing us to showcase that we can pull that off, right? And do it consistently at scale for great companies with their candidates. But that's a very real kind of concern that I totally get. And we have to be very cognizant of it as well, because AI is still fairly new to a lot of candidates out there.
One of the things that I really like about Anna in Alpharun is that it's a conversational AI interviewer, because the other platforms we tested, it's like a pre-recorded question, then you answer it, and then they kind of score you on the spot depending on your question. When we tried Alpharun, and our CFO, I know I told you about this, our CFO was also very curious about Alpharun, so he asked me to make him a pretend candidate, and then he applied on Alpharun. So what we like about it is it's very conversational. What I like about what you said was that it's consistency, it's high quality. Sometimes, because the tendency for some human recruiters is that sometimes, you wake up, it's a bad day, and then all of a sudden, all of your interviews are not your best. So for me, what Alpharun solves is consistency, the consistent high quality of each interview. And it's also conversational, like I said. So if you guys are curious about Alpharun, please, book a demo with Paul, because I'm telling you, it's like talking to a human person. And actually, I rate the questions to be better than what even I would ask probably, or a very seasoned recruiter would ask you. Paul, we're talking about I don't know, maybe the crossroads or the crossover between human and AI, the balance of that and stuff. But for you, how do you make sure that's still high touch? When you talk to people like us, where you offer your product, is the thought to replace your recruiters? Is the thought, how do you synthesize that? How do you approach offering your product where there's also respect and equal collaboration among human and AI?
We try to be kind of a thought partner as much as we can with every HR and TA leader that we work with to think about, okay, how are we going to reallocate that time that we're getting back when we start automating a lot of these initial interviews and some of the other parts of the candidate journey? And how do we use that time to up-level the rest of the experience? And so I think that's where a lot of our customers have been able to do a lot more personalized messaging with candidates, for example, and have a much more kind of personalized, high-touch close a meeting with them to get them excited about the role than they could before, because they have some of that time back. And so usually whenever I'm working with one of our partners, it's always about how are we substituting those hours for higher impact work and making sure the overall candidate experience just keeps getting better rather than, oh, great, we just automated this part, but I don't have to make changes in the rest of my recruiting funnel. I think that's broadly my advice to a lot of talent acquisition leaders is try to think about AI as a way to really reinvent your overall kind of candidate experience, start to finish, rather than something that's replacing one of the existing steps you have and not changing anything else around the experience. Because really, it's like an opportunity to fundamentally reimagine what it's like to apply for a job at your company. It's not just substituting a human for an AI in one part of the process.
Absolutely, I agree. I read this somewhere. I forgot who posted it, but I read somewhere that AI is actually, it's not to take people's jobs. It's not a statement we say just to make people feel good. I think that the truth behind it is, it's still at the end of the day a tool. It's still, maybe a Tesla car, a fancy car or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's still the human being driving all of the tools. What it invites us to do as talent acquisition people or as HR people is our ability to focus on what truly matters. And I've said this in the previous episodes, it's really about the connection we make with people. At the end of the day, recruitment is still about people. Alpharun or any other AI tool is there to help you transform and to really get to the bottom line, which is, for me, we care about how you feel when you apply to our job openings, when you speak to our recruiters.
I give you all a lot of credit is if there's anything that's important in this era right now with AI, it's just that willingness to change and adapt new technology and be open-minded maybe about the ways that we can do things differently. And as long as you have that mindset, I think to your point, the experience for the whole recruiting team is only going to get better, not worse. So you don't have to bring in more of like a fear-based approach to it. It can be like more optimistic and exciting. However, if the fear is like, I don't want to change anything, I just want to keep doing what we've been doing forever, I don't think that's necessarily a winning strategy.
Yeah, I agree. I've tried Alpharun. I went through some sample cases in the past. I went through the Alpharun interview myself. And I also recall one candidate who went to me and expressed her hesitations about going through it because they felt like, oh, I don't know how to react to someone I don't see. Like, there's no physical form to Anna or to Goodbye yet. But after she went through the interview, she said, I love it because I felt like there was no bias in the kind of questions and being asked of me. So how did you make sure that AI or your AI interviewer, Alpharun, is not reinforcing any kind of bias when you start the interviews?
Probably the responsibility that we take most seriously from a product and engineering perspective at the company is how do we build an amazing interviewer and recruiting agent that doesn't have those biases. And so there's a long list of maybe less exciting things that we have to rigorously test every time we make changes in the product around bias testing with our models and really asking independent third-party auditors as well to come in and evaluate our product to make sure that they can ensure that we're doing everything the right way there. I think the ultimate opportunity for us, and I see this in the data, is AI interviews will be far, far, far less biased than the normal human interviewer, which is obviously a great outcome from all of this. And there's other elements too that I think are interesting here where, in resume screening, for example, there's a lot of risk of bias because things like the name and location and even previous experience of the candidate has a lot of weight on the decision that you make there. In an interview, you have a much larger data set to really understand the candidate because you're able to, hear in their own words back and forth in a very dynamic conversation, everything they're interested in, the culture they're looking for, the skill set they have, and so on. And so ultimately, that's the other way you fight bias is you give more candidates the opportunity to showcase themselves fully so that you can make sure you're finding a role that really fits their skill set.
Yeah, you said a word there, and then now I'm curious what you think about it. Culture hiring, someone's fitness or, I don't know, someone's ability to fit into a company or team culture is always a criteria for hiring. Can your AI really gauge culture fit?
It's one of the most important things that the product does, honestly, and it all starts with a great job description, honestly. So I think you all are very good at that, actually. I give you a lot of credit there. Like the Penn Brothers job descriptions are always very detailed and very specific about what you're looking for. That's not the norm, unfortunately. Like there's a lot of job descriptions out there that are fairly generic. But culture is incredibly important. I mean, there's even roles that you might think of as being more standardized or more entry-level roles that many people do that feel like they're similar. At different companies, the expectations are just totally different in terms of culture and what's going to make you successful. And so being very specific about that when you set up an interviewer in Alpharun makes a huge difference, because then we can screen for that properly, ask some good kind of probing questions to get at some of those characteristics that you're looking for, and then make sure ultimately that they're going to be a great fit at the company.
Yeah, it still depends what you plug into the tool. So,
Right.
so culture fit, the technical skills, obviously AI, whatever you also plug around, what does the AI gauge about technical skills? But it's so interesting because also it eliminates your bias, your personal interpretation of what your team or company culture is. A really good AI platform is going to help you translate these values into real questions. And I've seen Alpharun do that quite well as well. So that helps me understand now, okay, this person is suggested to be a culture fit. Moving on to the next thing in my head, which is I shared with you a LinkedIn post I saw earlier today from a perspective of a candidate and also the perspective of a recruiter. From the recruiter side, it said, hey, candidate, stop using AI to write your CV. And then the candidate said, hey, recruiters, stop using AI to screen my CV. And I thought that was funny. It was a caricature and it made my morning. How do you react to that? Do you think that AI takes away authenticity from a candidate side and also from the recruitment side?
I think in those examples, it definitely does, unfortunately. I mean, we see it in the data that our customers share with us. The number of AI-generated resumes being used in job applications is just skyrocketing. And why not, right? It's pretty easy to generate a good resume with ChatGPT these days. And then companies, unfortunately, are responding to the point that was made in this cartoon with like, well, we're getting too many resumes, so let's just start using AI to screen all these resumes. And I think we can both see how that's not really going to get us anywhere good if it's kind of fake resumes in and then some AI screening on the other side. So a lot of what we get excited about, obviously, is the opportunity to give candidates the ability to just showcase their skills live and talk about themselves in an interview that's a lot more authentic in a way, even though you're talking to AI. And I think that probably sounds like a contradiction in some ways, right? Where it's like, how could this be authentic if I'm talking to a machine? And yet I think once you do one of these interviews yourself, you kind of quickly realize that it really does deeply understand what you're saying. It asks really high quality questions, and you do get an outcome at the end where you pretty deeply understand like who the candidate is, what they're interested in, what excites them, and so on. So I don't mean to just plug our product there. I don't want to do that. But I do, every time I see like the AI generated resume problem, I just think, if only there was a product that could help you just interview more of these candidates instead of making decisions solely based on their resume.
I think that candidates are getting smarter, which is why recruitment processes also need to get smarter. I am not opposed to AI. If you're a candidate and you want AI to help you write your CV, but you have to back it up in an interview. That's why recruiters need to get smarter as well. It goes back to what I said about better and deeper decision making, because AI can only again suggest. But at the end of the day, does the CV, the well-written AI-powered CV, can it back you up in a live interview with an expert?
I think that's the right way to frame it.
Predictions, Paul. For me, I started with Alpharun Q4 last year, officially and in full blast Q1 of this year. Where do you think AI in recruitment or AI will continue to shape recruitment in the years to come?
You know, it feels like so much has changed in the past year, and yet it also still feels like we're very early here. And I think you all are kind of at the cutting edge and frontier of this transformation, which is great. But I think it's going to take a long time, honestly, for the rest of the market to kind of catch up and adopt these tools in the same way. Even though there's a lot of excitement, it's a big change, right? It's a new process that you have to adopt. And so that's just naturally going to take time. I do really fundamentally believe, though, that the outcome is going to be great for candidates and it's going to be great for recruiters, too, in the long run. And I think we'll hopefully look back, to your point earlier, at this era of submitting fake resumes in 1,000 different places and hoping for an interview from there. Hopefully we'll look back on that and say that was crazy, and we have a much better process a couple years from now where the default is just instant interviews with an expert, as you put it, that very quickly matches you to all sorts of job opportunities all around the world. And ultimately, we're just doing a better job in general matching all these talented people around the world to all these great work opportunities. Like that's fundamentally the problem that we're trying to solve with recruiting. And I think AI still has a lot of room to run in terms of helping us tackle more and more of that problem.
Yeah. I'm just going to kind of wrap up what I think are my key takeaways from today's conversation. And this conversation is very similar to any of our previous calls anyway. So for any talent acquisition person, for any HR person who wants to decide, is AI authentic in my recruitment process? I think that authenticity is really up to you to define how that looks like for you. I always think of it as if the tool is there to help you get your bottom line, whether it's quality, obviously it's quality, speed to hire, which are always very important for any TA person, then find a tool that works for you. The authenticity for Penn Brothers is that, yes, you are going to go through an AI interviewer, but there is a human touch point after that. We are evolving our recruiters to become processors or, order takers, to being someone who calls you back after an AI interview to prepare you for the next stages, which is the client round of interviews or the hiring manager interviews. So from a 45-minute interview, which Alpharun takes care for us now, or 30-minute interview, now we only spend 15 minutes of valuable time to help you prepare for the next step. We are now your advisor. We are now your consultant. We're now going to answer your questions around, do you have any questions about the job, about the client? So we believe, and I strongly believe, that this pivot allows you to be more successful in your application. At the end of the day, it's a win-win for everyone. It's a win for Alpharun because it's effective. It's a win for us because we get to hire faster and with better quality. It's a win for candidates because they feel like, hopefully, what we're working on is that they feel that they are cared for, that they have an advisor, a personal advisor in their application journey. So any takeaways for you, Paul, before we end?
No, I always enjoy talking to you and catching up on all these trends so much. I think you're extremely forward thinking, and I think you just broke down the whole transformation in recruiting a lot better than I just did. So I love the notion of an advisor too for candidates. Like that feels like exactly the kind of role that recruiters can do better than anyone else. And so, yeah, I'm very excited about this future. I mean, I'm biased because I live in it and work in it every day, but I think it's going to be, like you said, a win-win-win.
Paul, for anyone who might be interested more about Alpharun, where can they find you?
Alpharun.com is our website. You can check us out there and book a demo, and you'll likely end up speaking to me or my twin brother. So we'll see if you get lucky, depending on who you end up with. And then, find me on LinkedIn as well. And always enjoy talking to amazing TA and HR leaders like Carla.
I wish you all the best, Paul. And I'm very confident with your product. I know you are in the early stages of Alpharun, so I cannot wait for you to finish my tickets. No, I'm kidding. I cannot wait for you to reach the next level as we keep evolving. From all of the feedback we hear from all of your customers and partners, I'm sure that this is just the beginning for Alpharun.
Thanks so much, Carla. Keep it up.
Thanks, Paul.